All right, welcome to another edition of the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. A little bit somber one today, Mark. You did a great one last night, setting the stage. I thought you did a great job explaining what we're up against, what's going on, and I was hoping the committee would have watched it, but it doesn't sound like they did. Southeastern finishes their season 7-5, and they are one of the first four teams left out of the FCS playoffs, and their season has come to an end. 7-5, Riverville Classic certainly finished on a high note, Mark. They can say that. The picture behind you sums up these players. But, it seemed to me that the players, and their players, they're focusing on the games each and every week. They're not really sitting around looking at the prognostications of FCS playoffs. You felt like that, and you were down there and you were with the players. I think they felt like they were excited to win, but the seniors weren't a somber moment of no more football. I think they felt like they were going to play again, and just left short, sounds like. And the first round games have been set, the seeds have been set. Just your quick reaction, Mark, to where we are.
Well, I've said this before. It's hard to sit here and argue when you're 7-5, saying, "Hey, we should be in the playoffs." Okay, from that standpoint, it's hard to say you got cheated out of the playoffs when you're 7-5. I mean, because your record is what it is. I mean, regardless, but we'll get into the schedule here in a minute. But the bottom line, we're 7-5. So it screams a little bit sour grapes when you're saying, "Hey, we got cheated at 7-5." I get that part of it, and I understand. I knew it was going to be a tough bubble for sure, and that we were, it was going to be tough to get in based on what had to happen. Okay. The biggest beef I have, and I've been saying this for over a week, Northern Arizona does not belong in the FCS playoffs. Okay. I'll just say it straight out. And this is no slight on them. We've never played Northern Arizona. We have no beef with them as an institution or anything like that. But you compare resumes, because the committee has a moving target, it seems like. 1 year, like last year, UIW wins 9 games. Of course, they play one non-FBS. In an 11-game schedule, they win 9 games last year, 8 against the FCS. They don't get in the playoffs, right? They were a very good football team last year, don't get in. And the committee says, well, you didn't schedule tough enough, right? So they go out and they schedule, and that's a much tougher schedule. Of course, they win 10 games this year. They win the auto bid. They get in. Okay, we do the same thing. We go out, we've always scheduled tough here at Southeastern, and we go out, play a brutal schedule for the second year in a row, and we'll go 6-1 in our league. Play near misses in non-conference play, get a good non-conference win, even though it was against the 4-8 Big Sky team. It's a team that beat you last year, so you return that favor and win this year, and yet you get left out over a team that didn't even play the top 2 teams in their league, lost to 3 and 4. And then their only wins were against teams below them. None of them had a 500 record, even a 500 record. And I think the combined win-loss record of their 7 FCS wins was 21-63, compared to 30-54 for Southeastern, including a win over SFA, who I would argue, if they had their quarterback and he played throughout, we're probably talking about them in the playoffs. Sam Bidlack, we saw how good he was. It didn't play in the last 3 ball games. Of course, they beat ACU, who's in the tournament, as the auto bid out of the 3-bid UAC. So we beat that team. We beat Lamar, who finished 7-5, lost by 3 points to the number 6 seed, which that doesn't make sense. So UIW gets the number 6 seed, but yet we only get one bid in. They lost to South Dakota State, a team we lost to, and lost to Southern Illinois, who won 3 games, I think, all year. Yet they're going to get a 6 seed based off of what? Okay, no FBS game, right? So they get a 6 seed based off of beating Northern Arizona, okay, because that's their only good non-conference win. And so it had to be buoyed by what they did in the conference, right? Well, we lost to them by 3. So something had to say, okay, you're going to be a 6 seed UIW, but yet we're not going to put Southeastern Louisiana in the playoffs. Now, having said all that, I'm not saying Northern Arizona should be out in favor of necessarily just us. I think they should be out in favor of anybody that's the first four out. I think Southern Utah had a great case. I would argue probably a better resume than us because they had an FBS win. Chattanooga had a good resume. It kind of faltered down the stretch. It finished 7-5. They didn't get in. So it's not necessarily we should be in, they should be out. I just don't think they should be in at all. Now, if Southern Utah gets in or Chattanooga gets in and we're left out, I no argument there. But Northern Arizona over any of us just doesn't sit right. I think that's kind of the biggest beef that we have. And we'll talk about the rest as we go.
Yeah, it seems to me, I haven't really followed this close, but it seems like there's a little beef on social media between the Southland and this United Football Conference deal. I think I saw a tweet from the Southland about that other conference talking about them or whatever, talking about the SFA Abilene game. So I know they've coached a lot of our teams over the years. I know Lamar has come back. After trying to join that for a little, well, it was the WAC, and then SFA's come back.
Well, this all stemmed, Robbie, from you had different athletic directors with agendas. The Southland made some very bad decisions way back when. Let's put it that way. One is, it's under different leadership, but made some bad. Look, they went for markets, and that sort of thing, and instead of programs. What's that?
When there is no market.
Well, there is no market. It's a niche. I mean, just because you're in Houston doesn't mean anything. You're trying to sell a network to people who have no. Bottom line is you have to sell. Okay.
My take on that, Mark, is that the commissioner and the conference office really liked living in Frisco, Texas, and it was getting less and less coveted that they had to stay there because they were losing Texas teams. So they were just throwing in more Texas teams to throw in more Texas teams to keep the legitimacy of staying in Texas, to keep the quality of life for the commissioner in the office. That's
I'll stay out of that. But the bottom line is, I know we've mentioned the term Texas fatigue a gazillion times because we're on the eastern fringes of the Southland Conference. The travel, and everybody knows how hard it is to drive because we're driving most of the time. Stuff to fly to everywhere. It's a hard get anywhere that you got to go across I-10 with the traffic, getting through Baton Rouge, across the Chaffalaya Basin, constantly under construction. What would be normally a 7 or 8 hour drive can be 10, 12, going to San Antonio. So anytime you're going west, anything past Houston is a tough get. SFA's fine. Of course they left the league and came back. Lamar's great. It's in Beaumont. Commerce is not bad because you kind of miss some of the I-10 stuff going up north and going to Dallas. It's an okay trip, but you start going to Abilene, you start going to UTRGV, you start going to Tarleton was in the league, all these things. So anyway, that's getting a little bit out there. But the bottom line is SFA wanted to be big time in basketball. They had an AD that had bigger things on the horizon, so they want to get out. Of course, Sam Houston has to follow them, basically. So they followed them out the door. Well, here's Lamar. Well, wait a minute. They're going. We're going. Next thing, it all stems back because Tarleton wasn't added to the league way back when. Tarleton, for whatever reason, was never admitted. So Tarleton, they come with this idea of jumping in the WAC when they move up. So now all of a sudden, subtract teams out of the Southland Conference, and then all of a sudden they realize this is not a good idea. And so here, SFA comes back, Lamar comes back. Probably Abilene Christian will end up back, I would think.
UIW.
UIW never went. I mean, they kind of half went, came back. So,
they kind of, that's why the game in 2022 was when it was, because of they gotten off the schedule and we're going to leave the league. But look,
and then of course the biggest one, time out now, the biggest one, McNeese kind of holds the league hostage, threatening to leave if we don't give them everything. And the league folded and gave them every conference tournament and just unloaded the wagon on McNeese to keep them in, and they're still threatening to go Conference USA. And I don't know what's going to happen there, but the bottom line is the league had just not very good leadership there for a while. And that's no slight on any individual. It just was not run very well. And so, to make a long story short, Sam Houston moves up. We lose, UCA, you lose some good quality football programs out of the Southland Conference. So now all of a sudden you're sitting here with, a couple of really, strong programs, a couple of decent ones, and then some really bad ones. And it hurts our overall conference profile.
Here's the deal, Mark. UCA left. I know UIW has been dominant in football, and they've done well with there, and they've invested in it. But all their facilities in football are a joke. It's tough travel for Nichols, for us to get there. It's probably kind of tough travel for Northwestern to get there. It's very tough for UCA to get there. And at the time, they were kind of a doormat they weren't even a good team in D2 when they moved up. And
no, but the thing is, they're investing.
And then you add Houston Baptist, Houston Christian. Their facilities are dreadful. I mean, that whole thing is just that whole thing is just kind of becoming a joke to me.
Well, it's a drag. Yeah,
the Southland is leaving them in this league. Their football stadium you just don't need. Look, I mean, I know they're giving kids a chance to play, but that we wouldn't get a chance anywhere else. I don't know, but look, their facilities are still an absolute embarrassment. I remember going there for the first time in 2015 in football, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this and this and this," and they still haven't done anything in 10 years. It's the exact same place. They literally draw. I mean, Mark, they are drawing 200 to 300 people a game.
Yeah,
and so it's just wearing you down. It's just wearing your league down. Northwestern has been so bad for so long. That's hurt the league. They were a team that had some national attention. If you go back 15 years ago, 20 for sure, that were getting in the FCS playoffs, had a little tradition, had some great players. They've struggled mightily over the last 15 years or more. That's just kind of dragging. I'm not saying to get rid of Northwestern, but
you can't just get rid of people. I mean, that's
no. But the Houston Baptist thing, they need to make an investment. Like, if they want to play in Division I football, you got to make it. You can't be having your coaches' offices portables that have been there for 10 or 11 years. It's either like, hey, we want you to be here. It's fine, but you've got to invest. You got to really try to take this seriously, or get out. Go play D2 or D3 football. That's my take.
Well, I do agree. There needs to be some type of. I don't know how you do it. ADs getting together or whatever. Some type of long-term.
I can go to a junior high 2 miles from my house and find a gym that's as good as
do that. You can drive anywhere in Texas and find better. Well, Mississippi, Texas, Alabama. I could name a lot of states where high school facilities are way better than a lot of facilities in Southland Conference. But the bottom line is, perhaps I don't know how it works. Get together, have some type of master plan, and say, okay, by this date, our facilities need to be at a certain level. Now we're hopefully building some new facilities here that'll help enhance our profile a little bit. We're still going to be way behind when you start looking at some of the facilities around the country and other leagues, but we kind of had good bones to begin with that really haven't been improved that much, just kind of on the edges or margins, I guess. But hopefully when we get the new, Dugas Center combined with North Oaks, which is on the works and should be coming here online in the next couple of years, that's going to help us a lot. But again, it's just uneven in the league. I think by and large, when you look at McNeese, Lamar, Northwestern State, talking about facilities wise, you have some good bones in the league as far as facilities. Nichols is fine.
Facilities. Lamar has great facilities.
Yeah.
McNeese has great facilities. Nichols, we were just down there. Their facilities are absolutely incredible.
Much better, yeah.
Yeah. Then what do they have? 6,000 students, Mark, and they have incredible stuff down there compared to us. And
they have land.
Northwestern.
What they have is land, and they have obviously the Manning camp, which is there because they have land. That's the reason it's there, and they're pushing money into that, and so it's got to get some turf every so often. They got a new indoor facility and it kind of parlayed into a new end zone facility. So their facilities have surpassed ours at this point. I think ours will surpass a lot of people's once everything's finished, hopefully. If it looks, and the investment is what we hear. But that's beside the point. We're talking about the bracket, why we are where we are. Not to get too far off the subject, but again, my beef isn't necessarily the fact that we're not in. We made our. Well, let's back up a little bit. Our goose was cooked when the schedule came out. Let's face it. I mean,
you always say
we were. Schedules matter. We were scheduled out of the playoffs, and the schedule was put together. Now, at the time it was put together, it's not to disparage, the schedule makers, but at the time when the schedule was made, we were making the playoffs, and you're told you got to go out and schedule good people. We have to pay bills, so you got to play 2 FBS teams. We avoided the Power Five, but yet you get basically a Power Five because you play Tulane, who at the time when you schedule them, you don't know if they're going to be this good. Southern Miss got away from us. That's one that, honestly, if we would have been in a little bit better position early in the season, that's a game we could have won. Could have won it that night. We just played awful, and they had some good luck and good fortune go their way, and ended up 35-10 when it should have never been that big of a disparity in score. You beat Eastern Washington, then you play South Dakota State, who with any other. If we just have any other offense and any other Frank Selfo year besides this year, that game's close. I'm not saying we'd beat them, but I think defensively we gave it some big plays. I think half their yardage came on like 3 plays. But if you can string together first downs, move the chains, put some points on the board, they hit a big play here and there, but that game's got a chance to be pretty tight. They weren't. I mean, they're good. They're not that good. I mean, they're down. And they had some guys out. That's a score that got away from us. And what was a competitive first half, even as bad as we were on offense. So all of that happens right out of the chute. So you got all this bias against you. They're terrible. And you can't recover from it, right? You beat Eastern Washington. Well, they just lost to Drake, right? Well, Drake's in the playoffs. Eastern Washington loses, so that game don't count. Okay, then you go on the road, you lose to Tarleton again. In a close game. That was impressive at the time. But then Tarleton does that every week. I mean, they don't blow anybody out. Every game's tight. So, that kind of looks okay. Yes, Tarleton. All right, then you beat SFA. Well, SFA lost to McNeese. So what I'm getting at is we're always chasing. And now SFA is a much better looking win now, but then they lose their quarterback at the end of the year and they finish 7-5. So we just never quite got the credit for making the rebound and the turnaround during the season that we should have. And then, of course, you lose to UIW, and they say, well, yeah, you lost, right? So for us, well, you didn't win the game. You didn't win the games you're supposed to win. Well, neither did Northern Arizona. They didn't win the games they were supposed to win. They lost to Montana. They lost to Idaho without their quarterback, by the way. And they're not the same team without their quarterback. I don't care what anybody says, Idaho. So they lose to Idaho. They beat a bunch of teams that have 1, 2, 3, and 4 wins. And that's it. They went out the league. So they get credit for that because they're in the Big Sky. Meanwhile, we beat SFA, beat Lamar, almost beat UIW. And we played 11 weeks in a row and win all the games we're supposed to win, finish second in our league. We get a number 6 seed who's the winner of our league, but yet we can't get 2 teams in before they get 5. That's a problem. And I think that's a bad look for FCS. I think it's a bad look for the sport. When you gift a school a playoff bid that doesn't really deserve it over a team from a second place team from another league who has a better resume, and throw out their 8-4 don't count because they beat a school that barely exists. So they're 7-3 against the FCS. They have an FBS loss. So their resume should be no better than ours. You got to compare the apples to the apples. And our league went 5-4 against their league. Okay, so that's another thing. And that's something I think you have to consider. So we did represent pretty well against the Big Sky this year. So you can't say, well, they're just a better league. Because they didn't play in the Big Sky that's the good Big Sky. They played in the bottom of the Big Sky. So they didn't play the first place, the second place team. They played 3rd and 4th, and they lost. both of them. So that's my biggest beef. For whatever it's worth. I'm not sitting here saying we deserved to be in the playoffs, slam dunk, period, full stop, because I think Southern Utah has a beef. Chattanooga has a beef. There are some other schools that have beefs. But when I just look at the fact that they're in over us, that's where I have a problem.
Well, we'll do a pod next week talking about the offseason, Mark, and where the Lions can look to get better and the recruiting, all that kind of stuff. Maybe get Coach Selfo on in December like we did last year, talk about everything. So, look, it's tough to fall out. My real quick, Mark, about 2 minutes left here, but my beef is that this United League gets 3 teams in. I didn't think it was that good of a league to get that. I mean, the teams there's some resume stuff in there, to some degree. I just don't know. And then the OVC Big South combo league or whatever, got 3 teams. That's kind of a question to me as well. But look, Southeastern falls short. We'll battle back next year. I think the schedule is a little bit more favorable than it was this year in 2024. But hey, look, I mean, you kind of know why you didn't get in, but you also have some beef on why you didn't get in as well, and some of the teams that did. So,
the UAC, I don't really begrudge them getting 3 because I think Tarleton belonged in. I mean, they won their way in. I think ACU won the auto bid, so they got to get in. Eastern Kentucky won their way in at 8-4. Now, honestly, I think Southern Utah should have got in over them, because Southern Utah beat them 42-21. And the only reason Eastern Kentucky got in is because they won 8 games. Southern Utah won 7.
Right.
But I think that head-to-head should have trumped the 8 versus 7, in my opinion. Southern Utah had an FBS win. So I think that should have got them in over Eastern Kentucky. So I don't have a problem getting 3. Now, they shouldn't get 4. However, they should have got 4 before the Big Sky got 5. I would say that. And certainly 3 before the Big Sky got 5. The Southland should have got 2 before the Big Sky got 5. The SoCon should have got 2 before the Big Sky got 5. It's just kind of how I see it. And I think that's bad for the FCS when you're just gifting these big conferences, because they're good leagues that are propped up by the top of their league, and you're just going to give them 5 teams. Well, the Missouri Valley didn't get 5. And I guarantee you they have 5 better teams than the Big Sky does, but the Big Sky gets a 8-win team because they have 16 teams, or at 14 or whatever it is. They have so many teams in their league that you can go through, like the CAA, you can go through the whole year and not play anybody any good. And you're just going to have, if you're decent, you're going to rack up 7, 8, 9 wins. And just go play an easy non-conference schedule, and you're just about guaranteed, because your league's good or considered good. That's what I get back to the computers. When you have garbage in, garbage out, you're good. We're ranked, I think our league's rated 10th. We're behind the SWAC. The SWAC's rated higher, I think. I saw that recently, that it's rated higher than the South, which is, everybody knows that's BS, but nothing against the SWAC. But I mean, head to head, there's no way. But that's what these, supposed geniuses that are on a committee sitting there, and they look at it and, the computer has them ranked here, like it's the gospel, and they just don't really grind hey, who's going to beat who. So bottom line is we're 7-5. We didn't do enough. We're not in, and you got to do better. So leads to the off season. We'll talk about that, as you said, on another pod. But you finish the season on a high note. You finish on a win. You're 7-5. You beat your rival. Get your trophy back, the River Bell, and hopefully that'll springboard into a positive off season and a chance to next year come out and get off to a better start, and let's try to win the league, try to win it outright and leave no doubt. And I think so there's a lot to look forward to.
Well, Mark, great job. Good job last night. Good season again. Well, it's good to win 7 games. It's good to have the Rebel back, but Lions will try to build on that next year, and they're on the upward swing. So we'll talk to you next week, kind of doing off-season stuff, and hope to get Alan back on and just kind of break it down from there. So for Mark Willoughby and Robbie Rhodes, thanks for watching. This is the Southeastern Sports Network podcast.